恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmya sanputo 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in the billion eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha. Welcome back to lecture number 148 of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. Today we are still on the topic of gender. Someone asked me, okay, isn't this Buddhism 101? Why have it seems like we are going a bit chim or a bit deep into the topic of gender. And I was thinking about it, and then I realized our WhatsApp group is called Buddhism 101, and that's where we can ask any question that we want. But technically, this is a sutra lecture. So a sutra lecture, depending on the topic and also my skill, my understanding, sometimes we can go deep, sometimes we can go shallow, depending. It's not fixed. Yes, so it's different. So this is not Buddhism 101. This is a sutra lecture, and but the WhatsApp group, that's Buddhism 101. Okay, because I go confused myself. All right. So today we're going to start. Let me see. I didn't change this slide. We looked at this slide last week. Okay. Today, why we are on gender? Because we are on this part of the sutra. If you look at your screen, there's a part in the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra that says, if a woman hears the name of the world-honored one, Medicine Master Vaidurya Light Tathagata, and sincerely cherishes it, in the future she will never again be born as a female. So on the surface, it seems as if the female gender is looked down on, but the Dharma is part of a whole. This sutra of the Medicine Master Buddha serves a purpose, but you can say it's kind of like I wouldn't say it's a jigsaw puzzle, but it's part of a whole. So sometimes to understand a certain topic, we have to take 1 or 2 steps back, and we can see, or we can learn more of the Dharma to understand, to try to figure out, for example, like today, the issue of gender when it comes to Buddhism. So that's what we are doing. Okay. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a quick summary of the last 2 lectures, and then we're going to continue with what we have. All right. And as usual, just before I do that, let me ask if anyone has any questions. I always have my fingers crossed. If anyone has any questions, I'm always met with silence. Anyone? No?
Dharma Master,
One question.
Okay, Lucy first and then Saha, all right? Because I saw Lucy unmute her microphone first. All right.
Yeah. Also, I want to ask about this externalists.
Okay. What
This one,
can you...
I'm not very clear about this. Oh,
You mean the
Chinese
term
is called
externalist?
Yeah, that's right. So let's say
Okay.
like we are learning a bit very difficult for me to understand, because certain time when they attended a Theravada school, then they don't really recognize Chinese teaching, because Theravada, I remember the Buddha, when Buddha speak to a lot, 500 people or whatever, so those people go off and then they continue something like that. I'm not too sure, I forgot the story already.
Okay.
So
All right.
some Theravada, they don't expect Chinese, like those like 金刚经 or whatever, Diamond Sutra or whatever, don't know those things.
Okay.
I puzzle. Okay, if you
Good
can
question.
explain that better. Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
I will. But not right now. I will at the end of the class. Okay. Saha, you also wanted to ask something?
Yes, Dharma Master. I just wanted to know, I don't know if my question is appropriate or not, but I just wanted to know how you become a monk and why you become a monk. And I'm not sure if it's appropriate to ask this question. Amitofa.
You mean is your question of a personal nature as you're asking me, or you're asking in general, how does one become a monk?
No, it's of personal nature of asking you like how you become a monk, what drove you to become a monk before
okay.
you were a layperson.
Okay, there's a slide that I have that will kind of answer on my behalf. All right, so we'll get there too, Saha. Thank you. Anyone else? If you have and you don't want to ask verbally, you can type into the chat box. All right. Okay. So, summary of what we have gone through so far, just to make sure we are all on the same page. I know everyone's memory can sometimes be very short. Okay. So in the beginning, humans didn't even have genders. All right. Our ancestors, if you can call it that, descended from the Abhasara realm, which is one of the heavens of the second dhyana, where Lord Brahma, the so-called creator, lives. We actually came from there. And in the beginning, there was no such thing as male, female. Yeah, we were genderless. And then when we have discovered so far, when the female gender throughout history has always been oppressed. Females generally have less freedom compared to men, especially during the Buddha's time, which I don't know if it's worse, but I don't think it is any better than now. Now there are a lot of places where women don't get the same privileges as men. Yeah, so that's what being born in a female body means as well. Okay, and then most importantly in the Dharma, your gender does not determine your potential for enlightenment. Okay, whether you're born male or female, it is your practice that determines whether you get enlightened or not. Not whether you're a man or a woman. Okay, and then it follows that it is not the body, but it is your practice. So along the same points, I'm just repeating myself. Different point. How you practice your conviction or your confidence in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and confidence in yourself. All right, your virtue, your learning, and your right view, your right understanding, your generosity. Generosity also means reducing your attachment, renunciation, and discernment. Discernment means using everything that you have learned to apply in your everyday decisions. And in Lucy's case, whether she should eat vegetarian food or non-vegetarian food, that's where discernment comes in. All right. And then the Dharma points out our faults. So sometimes the Dharma, the sutras may say there are shortcomings of man or shortcomings of woman, but it is for us to use to examine ourselves. It is not for us to judge other people by. All right. And then according to Bodhidharma, okay, the first patriarch of China, he says, according to the world, there's male and female. The world meaning the mundane, confused, ignorant world. So there's male and female, rich and poor. But he says, according to the way, there's no male or female, no rich or poor. There's no such distinction. Okay, it's only a distinction that appears when there's confusion and ignorance. Okay, and we'll come to that. All right, we'll come to that because we'll graduate to the Mahayana Sutras. We also looked at how the Dharma shows us the way to end suffering. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, hold on. Okay, sorry. So that was the summary. I got too fast. I went too fast. That's what we covered in the last 2 weeks. It doesn't seem like a lot. Maybe I take a long time to talk. Now that I'm looking at this, it's only one slide, but we took 2 weeks. Anyway, okay, today we are going to continue by looking at the Dharma in general before we delve into specific sutras. In terms of gender and the Dharma or the sutras that we have, the Buddha taught us the Dharma to show us how to end our suffering. Okay, and it's only logical that along the way, as we are trying to end our suffering, our life actually improves. We gain more happiness, we get less stress, less anxiety, less fear. The Dharma is about taking away fear and giving us confidence. So it improves our welfare along the way. So it makes us happy. And how does it do that? It does that in our relationships. So there's both a spiritual and worldly component to the Dharma. As we deal with our worldly relationships and the way we relate to the world around us, if we do it well, it provides the foundation for us to progress in our spiritual practice as well. Okay. Within the Dharma, the Buddha established the fourfold Sangha, which consists of monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. And if you were around during the Buddha's time, it was very, very significant. Without going into the history of the culture in India at that time, it was very much biased towards men. Okay, for example, if you're a man and your wife passes away, you are free to remarry as soon as you want. But if you are a woman, you are not able to do that, depending on the culture that you come from. For example, I had, when I was, when I was in college, I had this friend from India, and his parents came from, his parents were born in India, but they were living in Malaysia at that time. His dad had passed away, and they came from a certain clan And because the father had passed away, although it had been many years since the father had passed away, the mother was in a constant state. It's not mourning, I'm not sure what it's called, but the mother couldn't leave the house by herself. And the mother was not allowed, or it's not that she, how you say, if I remember correctly, how my friend explained to me, it's not that she was forced to, but because she grew up in that environment, she felt that it was the right thing to do. Okay, so she didn't leave the house, although the husband had passed away more than 10-15 years, and she decided she couldn't work and everything. I remember my friend having to decide to whether he had to stop schooling so that he could take on the role of being the man of the house. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so without going into history, and this was recent, but in history, this came from a long time ago, this kind of cultures, practices. The Buddha, when he established the order of nuns, it was very profound because you actually had an alternative to whatever life you were bound to before. So if you had a family, if you were married, if you were bound by your culture or your clan, if you became a nun, you could be free of all those expectations. So it was very profound in that respect. There were no other female renunciants at that time. The Buddha's nuns were the first. So and also when the Buddha established the order of nuns, it was very similar to the order of monks. So just like how the Venerable Shariputra and Venerable Mahamoggallana were the Buddha's chief male monastic disciples, and they were they managed the monks on behalf of the Buddha. So too on the female side, on the nun side, there were two nuns. One was named Venerable Khema and the other one was Venerable Upalawana. Venerable Khema was known as foremost in wisdom among the nuns, and Venerable Upalawana was known as foremost in psychic power among the nuns. So the nuns was established as a mirror to the monks. And then there's a sutra called the Bharavaja Sutta, and this is the Buddha giving instructions on how men should relate to women. And it said, with regard to women who are old enough to be your mother, establish the attitude you would have towards your mother. With regard to women who are old enough to be your sister, establish the attitude you would have toward a sister or your sister. With regard to women who are young enough to be your daughter, establish the attitude you would have towards a daughter. This is very similar to how a bodhisattva regards all beings. They regard all beings as their parents, as their children, as their siblings. So it's the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at how mothers are portrayed in the sutras. Okay. A mother is seen as occupying one of the 6 directions of worship or respect. What are the 6 directions? There's a particular sutra called the Siva Lo. I have an excerpt from it later, where there was a parent, a husband and wife who had a son. So the husband and wife were disciples of the Buddha, but not the son. So they very much wanted the son to follow the Dharma, but the son didn't want to listen to them. But the son was filial, just that the son didn't feel like Buddhism was for him. So they had a plan. The parents had a plan. They told the son, they said, after we are gone, you should every morning worship the 6 directions. And the son took that literally. And it was said that when the parents gave the son those instructions, the parents were confident that the Buddha would come and teach the son. So this sutra is also known as the Sutra of Lay Precepts for Lay People, because so what happens is the Buddha was walking. The Buddha knew what was going on. So after the parents had passed away, the son every morning would dutifully literally worship the 6 directions. 6 directions is north, south, east, west, and then up and down. So 6 directions. The Buddha came along and asked the son, "Oh, what are you doing?" And the son explained, "Oh, before my parents died, they made me promise to worship the 6 directions on their behalf every day." So then the Buddha started explaining to him, and the Buddha, the tone that the Buddha took on when you read the sutra, the Buddha is more like a very caring uncle. It's very different from the other sutras. The Buddha, for example, some of the things that the Buddha talks about is teaching this young man how to find good friends and how to avoid bad friends, how to build a career on honesty, how to treat people. You know, how if you have employees, how you should treat your employees, and how if you are an employee, how you should treat your boss, how you should treat your wife, and how you should treat your children, and a lot of things. It was kind of like a very caring uncle teaching their nephew how to be a responsible young man. Yeah. So a lot is portrayed in there. So in the sutra, the Buddha explains your parents are. It says you can worship the 6 directions literally. That's what the boy was doing. But the Buddha said you could also see parents as the eastern direction, teachers as the southern direction, your partner and your children in the west, your friends and colleagues in the north, and then your employees and workers the direction from below, and your teachers and Brahmins or ascetics as the direction above. And the Buddha will explain how in each direction you would relate to these people. Yeah, so it's a very long sutra, but it's very, very famous. It's called this. I'll show you the name of the sutra later. Okay, so that's known as the 6 directions. And then the mother occupies the same position as the father in the household. It's not like a secondary position. No, they're same level. And the mother is seen as the friend in one's own home. That's probably for the. I'm not sure how to explain that. I think when you need, it's more normal in the family in general that when a child needs some advice, they usually go to the mother first. You know, I think that's what it means. The mother is one's first teacher. Yeah, in the house, I remember my own mother. Is my mother here? No, my own mother would try to teach me the multiplication table, and I would drive her nuts. Yeah, she would. I would get frustrated with her, and she would get frustrated with me. Yeah, one's first teacher. There you go. Okay, then blood is but milk that the mother has given. Okay, and then it is impossible for a child to repay a mother's kindness. And a mother's kindness is used as an example in the Metta Sutta, probably one of the most famous suttas in the world. It says, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. So a mother's compassion and loving kindness represents the ultimate. Okay, so that's how the mother is described in sutras. Now, for a wife, okay, in the sutras, the wife is known as the best companion a husband can have. And then a superior wife is one that complements the husband. Because in a household, different, instead of breaking a household into genders, or it's easier to look at it in terms of roles, especially in a modern context. Roles are better to define what a person should be doing in a household where it takes people to work together. A wife is known as one of the 7 treasures in a house. And in this particular, in the Sivalovagada, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, I'll show you the spelling later. The wife occupies, from the husband's perspective, the wife occupies the western direction. And then there's a particular Jataka tale, okay, which is very interesting. It says, gods and divine beings, spiritual beings. In other words, your Dharma protectors. It says, are said to wish to meet such women and grant them their wishes. What kind of women? Women who live in peace, are intelligent and virtuous, that means maintain the precepts, or how you say, are respectful of all living beings, who live respecting their mothers-in-laws and are harmonious with their husbands. So if you have wishes and you want to be protected by Dharma protectors, that's one way that's described in the Tathagata tales. Okay, this is the sutra, the Sigalowada Sutta or Sutra. It says a husband should serve his wife as the Western quarter in 5 ways: by treating her with honor, by not looking down on her, by not being unfaithful, or rather, I don't know why there's double negative, basically by being faithful, by relinquishing authority to her, and by presenting her with adornments. Okay, so all you husbands out there, pay attention. And then if you're a wife, okay, it says, a wife served by a husband in these 5 ways shows compassion to him in 5 ways. So this is how you return your husband's compassion. She's well organized in her work. She manages the domestic help. She's not unfaithful. She preserves his earnings. She's deft and tireless in all her duties. And that's how the Western quarter is covered, kept safe and free of peril. So like I said, here it's separated into the traditional man and husband and wife roles. But in a modern setting, you can take gender out and just call it a role, the roles that people can play. All right, it can be free of gender. And then in there's a particular sutra. I don't have the name of this sutra, but there was a king Pasenadi of Kosala, and his wife had, one of his consorts had given birth to a girl. So he had a daughter, and he was disappointed because he wanted a man. Okay, he wanted a boy. Yeah, he didn't want a girl, which is weird because most men seem to want to have daughters. Yeah. Anyway, it says, so the Buddha's advice to him says, a woman, O Lord of the people, may turn out better than a man. She may be wise and virtuous, a devoted wife, revering her mother-in-law. So as long as you're wife and as long as you're wise and virtuous, then you will turn out to be a better man or better than people. Yeah. Okay. At this point, do anyone want to bring up anything? No? Okay. So that's the Dharma. Okay. Gender and the Dharma. Okay. Now let's go slightly deeper. Okay. There's a particular sutra called the Sanoga Sutta. Okay. It means bondage by gender. So it doesn't mean man better, woman better, or man is worse, woman is worse. Whether irrespective of you're man or woman, as long as you're confused and still under the influence of ignorance, we get attached to our bodies. We think that our 5 skandhas, the 5 aggregates, which make up our mental and physical capacities, we mistake that to be who we are. Okay, and that's where all the problem happens. So what does this sutra say? In this sutra, the Buddha says, a woman attends inwardly to her feminine faculties, her feminine gestures, manners, poise, desires, voice, charms. She is excited by that, delighted by that. That means you just take pride in who you are. And then it says, being excited and delighted by that, she attends outwardly, all right, to masculine faculties, gestures, manners, poise, desires, voices, charms. She's excited by that, delighted by that. She wants to be bonded to what is outside her, whatever pleasure and happiness that arise from that bond. Delighting, caught up in her femininity, a woman goes into bondage with reference to man. This is how a woman does not transcend her femininity. All right, you all got that? Okay, you are attached to your body. In this case, it's a woman. We'll go to the man in the next slide. Because you define we cannot help but define ourselves through we self-identify with who we are, okay, and because of that, we have an attraction to the opposite sex, and it is through this, first the inner self-attraction and then the outer self-attraction, that you cannot transcend who you are. It's because of this that you are kind of stuck as who you are. Okay, the formula is the same for a man. Buddha says a man attends inwardly to his masculine faculties, gestures, manners, poise, desires, voice, and charms. He is excited by that, delighted by that. Being excited and delighted by that, he attends outwardly, again, the same formula. Wants to be bonded to what is outside him, whatever pleasure and happiness that arise from that bond. Delighting, caught up in his masculinity, a man goes into bondage with reference to women. This is how a man does not transcend his masculinity. Okay. And then the Buddha says, and how is there lack of bondage? How do we transcend our confusion, our ignorance? It says, a woman does not attend inwardly to her feminine faculties, feminine charm. She is not excited by that, not delighted by that. Does not attend outwardly to masculine faculties, masculine charms. She is not excited by that, not delighted by that. Does not want to be bonded to what is outside her, does not want whatever pleasure and happiness that arise based on that bond. Not delighting, not caught up in her femininity, a woman does not go into bondage with reference to men. This is how a woman transcends her femininity. And then if you go to the next slide, same formula except it's for men. Okay, so all right, so there's a question, how does this apply to transgender or homosexuality? Okay, the principle is the same. Okay, for example, in certain same-sex relationships, there is someone who is more masculine, or someone who's more feminine, or someone who's more whatever it is, dominant or submissive. There's always a distinct. Not always. Okay, I can't say there's always a distinction, but in general, okay. So it's the same principle. There is still an attachment inwardly in how we all define ourselves, and then because of that attachment and our preference for the external, that internal attachment drives us towards that external bond that we seek. So for different people, it's going to be different. Like same-sex relationships or transgender relationships. In Buddhism, if we keep on, if we get confused by appearances or the symptoms, the Shufu calls it the branch tips, then it is very, very easy to complicate things. Why? Because it is at the tail end of cause and effect. But what Buddhism or what the Dharma teaches us is how to get to the root of things, how to get to the root problem. So the root problem is what? There's a few actually. One is desire, but it's very easy to say desire because desire is one of the three poisons: desire, hatred, or animosity, and ignorance. These three. So it's kind of like it's not wrong to say desire, but it's also kind of like a cop-out because everything comes basically from desire. But it's not a wrong answer, okay? So there's desire, one of the roots. There's also the mistaken identity of attaching, the mistaken identity of, the mistake of taking the five aggregates as the self and forming an identity around that, which is our body and the way we think. And then because we are mistaken in thinking it's a self, it becomes the five clinging aggregates. We cling to the aggregates because we think it's a self. So that's the second way of getting to the root of the problem. And then because everyone's karma is different, everyone has done different things in their life throughout so many lifetimes. When you get to the branch tips, the sickness, which we are all sick, okay, we are all mentally sick from the Buddha's point of view, this sickness manifests itself in different ways. Some more obvious than others, some more new, I guess, than others, because the conditions of the world allow cultures to change, and for norms to what's considered normal from whatever morality or virtue at that moment to also change. So things become different. In the future, we might be, we might progress to, say, augmenting the body with different different body parts, and robotics or mechanical or electronic implants that change the way we further identify with the body. But those are always at the branch tips, and if we remain at the branch tips, it's very easy to get involved in arguments, and it's very easy to get lost within that, because at the branch tips, there's always very good reasons why people are the way they are. And because of duality, we live in a world of duality, there's always for and against. If you're very skillful in putting forth an argument, you can weave a very convincing argument at the branch tips. So it's very easy to get confused or get into further discussions, and it's very complicated. Let's put it this way: it's very, very complicated, to the point where sometimes you can't find a solution. But if we take our cue from the Dharma, and we realize that we have to go to the root of the problem, then we can sidestep all the complications and just try to deal at where the problem arises. Because branch tips, it never ends. Yeah, it never ends. It gets very complicated. Okay, for Saha's question, let me go back a few slides. Where here? Mother, yes, Saha. When you asked me, I didn't include it in this slide. I thought I did. In one of the sutras, or there's a few sutras where the Buddha says that if, let me recall, something like a child is an outcast if a child abuses their parents. A child is, if the child does not respect their parents, the child is an outcast. Outcast here is a very strong term. Yeah, so related to that, and related to the fact that it is impossible for a child to repay a mother's kindness, one of the main reasons, not just for myself, but for a lot of Mahayana monastics, is that we leave home in order to repay the kindness of our parents. And it is not just, sooner or later we figure out, it is not just parents of one lifetime, but it is also parents from your past lives as well. So because they have been your parents, and you have the strongest affinities with them, if you don't save your parents, then who will? Yeah, something like that. Okay, I think for everyone it's different, but for most Mahayana monastics, that forms one of their reasons. Okay, all right. Okay, let me go. Sorry for the flashing of the slides. Okay, now I have a very interesting sutra, the Lotus Sutra, and this sutra is related to Lucy's question, but I'll come to Lucy's question later. Because Lucy said just now, when a particular sutra was spoken, 500 people left before the Buddha could speak. This is the sutra, the Lotus Sutra. I think it was 5,000 bhikshus, 5,000 monks, or 5,000 people in the assembly They left because they thought they understood what the Buddha was going to say, and they said, oh, I have better things to do, like maybe go meditate or wash their clothes or whatever. So the Buddha called them arrogant. Buddha said, okay, but now the assembly is free of useless twigs and sticks, so we can start with the real work, and the Buddha can explain. Yeah, so that's the Lotus Sutra. Now, in the Lotus Sutra, and then if we have time, I also have slides from the Vimalakirti Sutra. Why am I sharing the Lotus Sutra with you? Because it shows a very, very different perspective to the female gender. Okay, in the Lotus Sutra, in particular in this section of the sutra, and in the Vimalakirti Sutra, I'm not sure about other sutras, other Mahayana sutras. The context is this: Venerable Shariputra. Okay, if you remember me speaking from a few minutes ago, when the Buddha set up the monks, his two chief main disciples were Venerable Shariputra and Venerable Mahamoggallana. Venerable Shariputra is known as foremost in wisdom among all the Buddha's disciples. That means his wisdom is the top. If you want anything about the Dharma to be explained, Venerable Shariputra will be able to answer it as almost as well as the Buddha. Okay, but in the Mahayana Sutras, in certain Mahayana Sutras, Venerable Shariputra is used to represent the confusion that normal people have in terms of gender. Alright, although Venerable Shariputra is an Arhat, and I would say in reality he does not have that confusion, but he takes on that role. Why? Because in the Mahayana Sutras, he is not the foremost in wisdom anymore. He is foremost in wisdom among the Buddha's bhikshu disciples, okay, but he's not foremost in wisdom among the bodhisattvas, and all the different, all the other, I don't know what other beings they are, but definitely among the bodhisattvas, Venerable Shariputra's wisdom pales in comparison. Okay, so he takes on that role. It's not some of the things that he asks he doesn't know. I'm quite sure he would know, but if he doesn't play that role, no one else would understand how to play the role for our benefit. Okay, so what role is this? Okay, this particular section of the sutra, Manjushri Bodhisattva says, in the ocean, I always expounded only the Lotus Sutra to explain how profound the Lotus Sutra is. Then one of the Bodhisattvas, his name is Prajna Kutta. Prajna means wisdom. I don't know what Kutta means. So anyway, he asked Manjushri Bodhisattva a question. He says, this sutra is profound and subtle. It is a jewel among sutras and rare in the world. If sentient beings diligently strive to practice this sutra, will they immediately become Buddhas or not? All right. And then Manjushri Bodhisattva answered, yes, they will. Then he gave an example. He said there is the daughter of the Naga king Sagara, who is only 8 years old. The girl is only 8 years old. She is wise, her faculties are sharp, and she also well knows all the faculties and deeds of sentient beings. I mean, she knows you better than you know yourself, basically. She has attained the power of recollection. All right, and Manjushri Bodhisattva further praises her. He says, she preserves all the profound secret treasures taught by the Buddhas, enters deep meditation, and is well capable of discerning all dharmas. She instantly produced the thought of enlightenment and attained the stage of non-retrogression. Non-retrogression means once you reach that particular stage, you cannot fall back anymore. You can only progress. She has unhindered eloquence and thinks of sentient beings with as much compassion as if they were her own children. Remember the Metta Sutta? The mother cherishes her own child. There you go. It says, her virtues are perfect. Her thoughts and explanations are subtle and extensive, merciful and compassionate. She has a harmonious mind and has attained enlightenment. All right, 8 years old. All right, 8 years old. And then the Bodhisattva Prajna Kutta said, I see the Tathagata Shakyamuni who has been incessantly carrying out difficult and severe practices for immeasurable kalpas, accumulating merit and virtue while seeking the Bodhisattva path. Looking into the great manifold cosmos, there is not a single place even the size of a mustard seed where this Bodhisattva has not abandoned his life for the sake of sentient beings. He attained the path to enlightenment only after this. It is hard to believe that this girl will instantly attain complete enlightenment. Okay, so Bodhisattva Prajnakuta has a doubt. After Manjushri Bodhisattva praises the dragon girl, who is only 8 years old, alright, and a girl, okay, not only 8 years old, but she's also a girl. So he has a doubt. He says, for example, Shakyamuni Buddha had to practice countless kalpas. Kalpas is a very long time. Hold on, let me see if I can find out. Just give me a quick second. How long is a kalpa? All right. Let me see. Lifespan. Kalpa. No, I don't have. Oh yeah, I do. Let me see. One kalpa is 16.8 million years, and that's a small kalpa. When usually they talk about kalpas, like in this aspect, it's usually a great kalpa, which is 4 middle kalpas. Let me see. It is 1 followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1 followed by 12 zeros. All right. That's how long it is. Okay, so you know it's a very long time. So long, excuse me, so long that Bodhisattva Prajnakuta said he cannot find a single place in this entire, not just one world. Okay, a Buddha land has one, let me see how many, if I'm not mistaken, a Buddha land has 1 billion worlds. Okay, so if you think of our world as one world, under Shakyamuni Buddha, there is another billion worlds that are similar to ours. That has 1 billion Mount Sumerus. Okay, all right. So Bodhisattva Prajnakuta says that he cannot find a single place in this 1 billion worlds that Shakyamuni Buddha, when he was a Bodhisattva, did not give up his life to save a living being. That's how. So he's comparing this little dragon girl to the difficulty that Shakyamuni Buddha as a Bodhisattva had to go through to attain Buddhahood. Alright, you'll get that? Okay. Now, before he had finished speaking, okay, so halfway while speaking, the daughter of the Naga king suddenly appeared in their presence, bowing until her forehead touched their feet, meaning what the text means is that she was very respectful towards them. She withdrew to one side and spoke these verses in praise. She said, the Buddha is deeply versed in the characteristics of good and evil, and he completely illuminates the 10 directions. His subtle and pure Dharma body is endowed with the 32 marks, with the 80 good characteristics. Is his Dharma body adorned? He is adored by devas and humans and honored by nagas. There is no sentient being who does not pay him homage. All right. Moreover, that I will attain enlightenment upon hearing him can only be known by a Buddha. I will reveal the Mahayana and save suffering sentient beings. So now he says only she's basically saying that at my level only a Buddha knows. Basically, that's what she's saying. She says that moreover that I will attain enlightenment upon hearing him can only be known by a Buddha. All right. So basically she's just rebuking that Bodhisattva Prajnakuta, and then at that time, then Shariputra decides to enter the conversation. Venerable Shariputra said, you say that you will soon attain the highest path. This is difficult to believe. Why is this? The female body is polluted. Okay, imagine saying this into a group of bodhisattvas. It says, it is not a fit vessel for the Dharma. How can you attain highest enlightenment? This is one of the things Gary, is Gary with us today? No, I think he's still on his vacation in China. He sent us those wonderful photos. Okay. He says, Venerable Sariputra says, the Buddha path is long. One can only attain it after diligently carrying out severe practices and completely practicing the perfections over immeasurable kalpas. Okay, that's what the sutras say. All right, the sutras, the language of the sutras, if you take it literally, that's what it says. But Bodhidharma, for example, has a very different explanation. The Theravada Buddhists, okay, they don't aspire to become Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, not like Mahayana Buddhists. Why? Because they say it takes too long. They say the Buddha took 3 Ashamkaya kalpas, 3 great kalpas, that's 3 followed by 12 zeros to become a Buddha. They can't do that. They say it's too long. So they only want to become arhats. They just want to end their own suffering. Bodhidharma says the 3 Asamkaya kalpas is a metaphor. What it refers to, the number 3, is for the 3 poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. Okay, and the long number, 3 great Asamkaya kalpas, excuse me, refers to the fact that we have been bound in transmigration or rebirth for an uncountable time. That's what it means, it says. But it doesn't mean that it literally takes 3 Asamkaya kalpas. That's what how Bodhidharma explains it. Okay, so the language of the sutras may say one thing, but sometimes there are hidden meanings that maybe because it's the Dharma ending age, we are a bit removed from it. Okay, anyway, it seems that this is also the problem for Venerable Shariputra, and that's why he's challenging the dragon girl. Okay, so let's see what happens next. So he's not finished yet. He says, moreover, the female body has 5 obstructions. So he probably got this from one of the Buddha's teachings, so he's very confident. He says the first is the inability to become a great Brahma. The second is the inability to become Chakra. The third is the inability to become Mara. And the fourth is the inability to become a universal monarch. The fifth is the inability to become a Buddha. How can you, with your female body, quickly become a Buddha? All right. Well, for I think 99.9999999% of normal living beings, whether you're man or woman, is the same. You're in the same situation. You can't just become chakra. For example, Lord Chakra, at least in this, there are many Lord Chakras under Shakyamuni Buddha. I think the one in our world system, he became Lord Chakra, or I would say she became Lord Chakra, because in his previous life, she was a woman and she found a temple without a roof. So it was a kind of like an abandoned temple. She didn't have any money, but she had 33 friends who had money. So she got the support of her 33 friends, and they all chipped in and they invested time and effort and to rebuild the temple. And when they all died, okay, Lord Chakra is known as the king of the heaven of the 33. That's where it's known. That's where the number 33 or the Triumph Trimsha heaven is known as. So he has the main palace in the heaven of the 33, and the other 33 main palaces are inhabited by excuse me, her former friends. Excuse me, just let me drink some water. So on the spot, you want to become chakra? Well, in the case of our current Lord Chakra, no, he was a woman first, and he rebuilt the temple. Then he died, and then was reborn as Lord Chakra in the heaven of 33. All right. So anyway, then the daughter of the Naga king presented to the Buddha a jewel worth the great manifold cosmos, and the Buddha accepted it. She spoke to Bodhisattva Prajnakuta and the noble Shariputra, saying, I offered a jewel, and the Bhagavat is another title of the Buddha, and the Buddha accepted it. Was that done quickly or not? All right. And they answered, yes, it was done extremely quickly. And then the girl said, through your transcendent powers, watch me become a Buddha even more quickly than that. So imagine she's doing all this just to prove a point to the two of them. Says, then the assembly there all saw the daughter of the Naga king instantly transform into a man, perfect the Bodhisattva practices, go to the Vimala world in the south, sit on a jeweled lotus flower, and attain highest complete enlightenment, become endowed with the 32 marks and 80 excellent characteristics, and expound the true Dharma universally for the sake of all sentient beings in the 10 directions. You notice she doesn't bother to argue with Venerable Shariputra or the Bodhisattva Prajnakuta. She just shows them, and she doesn't try to use the Dharma to convince them or, Then it's okay. Then the Bodhisattva Shravakas means sound hearers. People like Venerable Shariputra, all of us, we are known as sound hearers. 8 kinds of devas, nagas, and so on, humans and non-humans of the Saha world, all saw in the distance that the daughter of the Naga king had become a Buddha and was universally teaching the Dharma for the sake of the humans and devas in that assembly. They rejoiced greatly and honored her from afar. On hearing the Dharma, incalculable numbers of sentient beings became enlightened and attained the stage of non-retrogression, received the predictions of the path, and the Vimala world quaked in 6 ways, and 3,000 sentient beings in whom the thought of enlightenment had awakened received their predictions. Those are the beings in the Dragon Girl's Buddha land. Yeah. So there you go. We, in our confused state, we have a lot of discrimination and rules and this and that, just like Venerable Shariputra. So Venerable Shariputra basically was speaking on behalf of us and saying, no, a woman can't be this, a woman can't be that, a woman has 5 obstructions. But the Dragon Girl just literally on the spot transformed into a man and became a Buddha in the faraway world and showed everyone how how ignorant they still were, being attached to their views. Okay, all right. So now, Lucy's question about externalists. Okay, externalists, also known as what was it, Lucy? You said Wai Tao, right? Is that Wai Tao? You use that word? Or Wei Tao? I don't know.
Wai Tao, correct. Wai Tao. Chinese word is Wai Tao.
Okay, all right. So in Buddhism, what does externalist mean? Externalist means you look outside. In Buddhism, if you walk the Noble Eightfold Path, you look inside. The solution to overcoming suffering, to ending birth and death, is not outside, but rather inside. Buddhism is not so much, the practice in Buddhism is not so much getting or obtaining, it's more shedding. It's like some people use the analogy of the example of an onion. It's like you're peeling away the layers. So you're shedding away. What are you shedding away? You're shedding away your unwholesome habits, all your anger, your greed, all your attachments and your ignorance. That's what you're shedding. Because we all have the Buddha nature. We all have the potential to awaken. the potential for enlightenment. But if we continually seek outside, like we seek for salvation from a God, or we seek in science, we are looking outside for a solution, those are called externalists, and you will never find the answer. You can get to very, very pure forms of existence. For example, like in the Brahma worlds, you can abide there for a very long time, okay? But you still have not ended birth and death, and you will still get reborn and go through the whole samsaric process. Whereas in Buddhism, we do not rely on outside of us, we seek inside. That's why we have meditation. We meditate, and the Buddha says, how should we meditate? Basically, what you can see from your eyes is not the self. What you can hear is not the self. Things that you can smell is not the self. So everything that has to do basically with your body and your mind is not the self. In other words, you ignore. So all meditation techniques, for example, counting the breath, the huato. The huato is actually a very excellent method. So reciting the Buddha's name is all meant for us to focus internally to a single point and not to cling on to any sights, sounds, smells, tastes, objects of touch or feelings, and then finally anything to do with the mind. You're not supposed to engage with it. You're not supposed to follow after it. Yeah. So modern mindfulness movement, they talk about listening to music or mindful in sensations and all that. If you ask me, those are still externalists because they are still seeking outside. They're still engaging with the senses. If the objective is to have a calm mind or whatever it is you want to, you want to deal with your stress and all that, yeah, those things might work. But from the point of view of ending suffering, of ending birth and death, it's different. Okay? It is to disregard, to not engage, to not take everything to do with the body and mind as the self. So Shifu says you fight poison with poison, because even the Huato method or reciting the Buddha's name, counting your breathing, you are still using the false mind, but you are forcing the false mind towards a single point. So Shifu says you have no choice. This is to fight poison. In this case, you need poison because we haven't broken through the skandhas yet, the aggregates yet. Not like Kuan Yin. In the Heart Sutra, it says when Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva illuminated the 5 skandhas, he left behind all suffering and difficulty. So we have to do that in order to illuminate the 5 skandhas. Or in other words, illuminate means you are able to see for what it is. You are in a dark room, you turn on a flashlight which represents your wisdom, then you can see and you illuminate the 5 skandhas and you realize, all this while I've been dreaming. In my dream, I thought the people I saw was real. In my dream, I thought I was using my real eyes. In my dream, I thought I was talking and I was this person and I was that person. But now I've woken up. I've illuminated my dreams and I know it's no longer real. So you can only get there by looking inwards and not seeking outside. All right, so that's what it means when they say, when they talk about externalists, because all other spiritual paths rely on something external. So it will, and because everything external is false, it will never lead you to the ending of birth and death. It can lead you somewhere, but that somewhere is not permanent and it won't lead you to the ending of birth and death. All right. So that's one part to Lucy's question. The second part of Lucy's question is about how, like the Theravadas, they don't they don't subscribe to Mahayana sutras is because because over time, culturally, historically, Buddhism has been broken up into the Theravada school and then the Mahayana school. The Theravada schools only subscribe to the early Buddhist sutras, where the Buddha taught about ending birth and death. And one of those sutras, the Buddha said that the Buddha asked the monks. The Buddha picked up some leaves, and the Buddha says, "Oh monks, where are there more leaves? Are there more leaves in my hand, or are there more leaves in the forest behind me?" And then the monk said, "Oh, of course, the forest is full of leaves, and your handful of leaves, cannot be compared to the leaves in the forest." So the Buddha said, "Likewise, what I have taught you in order to end your suffering, in order to end birth and death, is like the leaves in my hand. But the Buddha's actual knowledge is represented by the forest behind." But the Buddha didn't bother to teach them everything. The Buddha didn't teach the Dharma to us, to give us the secrets of the universe, to explain how everything works. No. The Buddha, there's a category called 14 questions that the Buddha never answers. Why? Because in our confused state, if the Buddha will try to give us an answer, it will only drive us further into confusion. Okay? I don't have time to explain that, but actually I already did in the WhatsApp group. So there are certain questions that the Buddha doesn't answer, especially when it comes to questions of eternalism and nihilism, which are the two extremes, and those are the externalist ways. Eternalism and nihilism represents the two views of externalists, and anywhere in between. And the middle path of the Buddha's Dharma is not a combination of the two. The middle path actually negates both eternalism and nihilism. It's not an answer to either one, but it's a mode of practice that if you follow, it will reveal the answer to you, basically. So the Buddha said, all I've taught you is to end birth and death. And so the Buddha never answered certain questions about the world, never answered certain questions about the existence of certain things and about humans and things like that. But, okay, that was the Buddha teaching sound hearers. That was the Buddha teaching people who have not even ended birth and death. But those were not the Buddha's only disciples. Sound hearers, human beings, were not only the Buddha's disciples. The Buddha had all the spirits, dragon kings, bodhisattvas as disciples as well. So the Mahayana Sutras, just to say in general, was the Buddha speaking to beings of a higher level, beings who had more experience with the way things were. For example, like bodhisattvas. So just like a skilled teacher in school would teach children in primary school a certain way, a certain syllabus, and then when the children enter secondary school, the teacher would have to change the way they teach and the way the subjects are presented. Even the subjects are different. Why? Because the capacity and the experience and the understanding of the students were higher compared to when they were in primary school. And then when they go to university, the curriculum and the method of teaching has to evolve so that the students are challenged and learn according to their capacities and potentials. And that represents how the Buddha taught different classes of beings. Okay, so for sound hearers or monks and nuns, the Buddha would teach what he could hold in his hand, the handful of leaves. All right, but when it comes to bodhisattvas, like the dragon girl, okay, the dragon girl who on the spot can become a Buddha, the Buddha would obviously teach or speak very, very different level of sutras. And those leaves will come from the forest behind him rather than his handful, because the handful is for, say, primary school, right? So the Lotus Sutra is about that. The Lotus Sutra is about how the Buddha would teach according to the intentions and the potentials of the people that he was speaking to. The Buddha wouldn't force. If you are a sound hearer and your thinking is that it takes too long to become a Buddha, who can do that? There's so much suffering involved. I'm trying to end my own suffering, and you're asking me to come back lifetime after lifetime for 3 great Asamkaya Kalpas to end other people's suffering, and I can't even end my own suffering. Their minds cannot comprehend that. And the Buddha understands. So the Buddha would say, okay, step by step. The Buddha won't even talk to them about becoming a Buddha. The Buddha would just talk to them about, okay, right now, how can you end your own suffering? And all the practices that are suitable for someone in your stage. And that became the Theravada canon. The Buddha, in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha calls that the ox cut. No, there are 3 cuts. 3 cuts representing the vehicle of the sound hearers or the Theravada. We can translate that as the Theravada canon. And then there's the Prachika Buddha vehicle, and then the Bodhisattva vehicle, and then the Buddha says, actually all these 3 vehicles are false. They're all not real. I'm only giving you all those because in the end I want all of you to become Buddhas. But you're not ready yet. So I'm only teaching according to your potential. All right. So it's natural. Okay. It's natural then, as human beings who are so confused, so full of discriminations, where you would expect someone who is very attached to their idea of what Buddhism is to look down or to negate or to refute other schools of Buddhism, because, well, when someone does that, it just means that they lack knowledge. They don't see it. That's why they have those very limited views. But there's nothing wrong with that. The Buddha fully understands. And I wouldn't say the Buddha encouraged, but the Buddha would just say, there's nothing you can do about that. You can't teach a 5-year-old how to become a doctor. You have to do it at the level of a 5-year-old. Wait until he's maybe 10 years old, take him to the hospital, and maybe when he see the doctors, then something he may feel some affinity, and then when he's 15 years old, you take him to another hospital or something like that. You do it step by step. Yeah. All right. So Lucy, that's the way the Buddha taught the Dharma. And human beings, being human beings, we tend to get attached. We call it different schools. We say we are better than you and all that. But personally, having read, having tried, I've been trying my best to finish reading the Theravada canon, and the problem with the Mahayana canon is not all of it has been translated to English. A lot of it is still in Chinese. But I can say that if someone has read as much as they can for both, and they take a step back and they try to see the whole picture, they see that it's all the same thing. It's all one flavor, the Buddha would say. It all shares the same flavor of the Dharma. Okay? Yeah, it's only people who don't really understand one or the other. Most of them don't even understand their own the school that they attach to. But if they draw lines and they discriminate, it just shows a lack of understanding. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. I have taken more than enough time. Anyone else? Any more questions or remarks? Anything you want to add? No? Okay, next week we will look at the Vimalakirti Sutra, which is very interesting. It's again Venerable Shariputra and then a goddess. But this time it's more entertaining. Yeah. And then we'll look at an example of someone who actually chose their gender. They make a vow. This person made a vow to be reborn female life after life. Yeah. So we'll look at that. Okay.
Dharma Master,
Right.
I have a question, but I'm not sure it's about the gender. Can I ask?
Yeah, of course. It doesn't have to be related. Yeah.
Like for the like people who are born, let's say, as female, but they choose to be like I don't want to offend anyone, but I have to like to lesbians, or they want to be with the same sex. Is that based on karma, or they choose to be like that? And also people, let's say, that are born as females or males, they change their gender. Like let's say they identify themselves, like here in Canada, it's a lot of that right now, as like males or females or it now, like IT. Like we cannot use males or females, they get offended. We have to use IT, which is it. So I'm just wondering, is this based on karma, or is just what is this based on? Based on Buddhist, like how do you explain this based on Buddhist teachings?
Okay. It is the way we are is all definitely based on karma. There's a sutra that goes, we are heir to our karma, born of our karma. I can't remember the rest, but the principle is this: we are the result of the karmic seeds that we have planted in our previous lives, and the seeds that we are continuing to plant in this life will shape our future lives. When the conditions are right, the seeds will come up. So everyone, one of the principles of cause and effect is for us to learn how to be responsible for ourselves. Because everything that happens to us, even if other people decide to do something to us, from the point of view of cause and effect, it is because we have done something for that to happen right now. For example, there's a story about there was a monk during Shifu's time, and I'm not sure if I have the story right, but this is what I understand. There was a monk during Shifu's time, and he was his relationship with a few other monks was not good, to the extent that the other monks left because of this particular monk, and Shifu didn't do anything. And later Shifu explained that it was because in the past life this particular monk wanted to leave home, and when he went to a temple, the very monks that he chased away in this life, who were monks in that temple in that past life, something like didn't allow him, or they were an obstacle or something. So the karmic seeds played out in this particular lifetime, where he just felt compelled to act in a certain way until the other monks were driven out. So of course, when we look at it in one lifetime, we don't understand, and we think that things are unfair, or why didn't Shufu do something about it? How can Shufu let this happen? There are all kinds of injustices and all that. But actually, if people who know what's going on realize that, oh, actually everything is really fair. You just reap what you sow. So, knowing that, number one, we should not judge people, because even ourselves, we are the result of our past lives. It's not like we've done anything in this life to be who we are. Not really. It's what happens from past lives. But what we can do is to recognize the issues that we are facing, where they come from. For example, dissatisfaction, let's say with the physical body. There are very, very few people in this life who are satisfied with themselves. So that's why you have all these gyms and fitness and plastic surgery and Botox and clothes, fashion and all that, because people are always trying to overcome their current physical whatever it is to become something else. and it manifests in different ways. Like I said, at the branch tips, depending on the person's causes and conditions, some people want to change their genders, some people want to reinforce their gender through plastic surgery, some people. So if you look at it at the branch tips, it's never ending. Yeah, so from a Buddhist point of view, that's how we can try to understand. And the main takeaway is that if we don't try to solve these feelings of dissatisfaction, it's going to continue again and again. And if we concentrate on the body, we are looking at the wrong place, because the whole point of Buddhist practice is to get away from thinking that the body is us, that our gender represents who we are, that we are defined by our name, by our culture, by our race. That's the whole point of Buddhism, to get away from identifying with the body, the mistaken clinging to the 5 aggregates. So Buddhism teaches us every time we start looking outside and we start getting more and more attached to the body, we are not only do we don't solve any problems in this life, you can try to look younger, but that doesn't guarantee happiness. That doesn't guarantee an end to suffering. You might be happy with your body only for dissatisfaction and unhappiness to come from somewhere else. Anyway, the body is impermanent. No matter what you do with the body, you can change your gender, you can become an animal, you can whatever you want. Let's say in the future, the wonders of medical science lets you do wonderful things and change you to become whoever you want to be. The same problems remain, which is greed, anger, and ignorance. So no matter how much effort we put into a particular thing, at the end of the day, it is still impermanent and it will decay. So Buddhism teaches us how to, when you're ready, not everyone is ready, okay, but if you're ready to realize the folly of continuing down a path which does not lead to satisfaction or a permanent happiness. It's like a broken down car, okay? I used this metaphor before. You have a broken down car. When you try to accelerate it, the accelerator pedal might get stuck. When you try to brake, it might not stop. When you try to turn the car, the steering wheel might come out in your hands. It's a total death trap. That represents our body, which is because our body is going to betray us one day. And no matter how you polish the car, how many coats of paint you spray, how many stickers you put on the car, how clean you make the car, it is still a death trap. It's still going to betray you one day. You're riding in a car one day, for sure it's going to kill you. So people who recognize that, then they learn how to temper their attachment, or they just lose all enthusiasm for the body at all. They realize they are looking in the wrong place. What they actually want is to be free of affliction, free of suffering. They want to find permanent happiness. And then they realize that you won't find it in something that's going to decay. You can't find something permanent in something that's impermanent. So that's why we are not externalists. That's why we are internalists, in the sense that what's impermanent? Your body and your mind. So the Buddha says, whatever you can hear, you can see, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, the sight, sound, smell, taste, and the corresponding eye consciousness, ear, tongue, mind consciousness, that is not self. So as you meditate, no matter what you encounter through these 6 consciousnesses and the consciousnesses themselves, it is not self. Let it come, let it go, don't engage. All right? So that's the Buddhist view on it. If you still continue to look outside at the body or what, it will never end. We will continue coming back again and again because we are looking at the wrong place. All right? Okay, dedication of merit. I'm going to put my palms together. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing in respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Half bow. Sorry, that was the third bow. This is the half bow. Okay, half bow. Okay, Amrita for everyone, and we all see you next week.
Thank you, Dharma Master. Good night.